Welcome students to lesson 33 of the Changing Economic World topic. In this lesson we will be exploring two other types of transportation, and I will show you why they are so important for everything that we do and every part of the United Kingdom's economy. Please write the date, title and learning objective, and make sure you have a pen and paper ready to learn. Please write 1 to 10, answer the questions from memory, and then mark your answers after. Game time. Number 1. One of the main aims of smart motorways is to reduce congestion, which may lead to higher productivity and less wasted time. 2. The UK's largest economic sector is the tertiary sector. 3. The Outer Hebrides in Scotland has suffered population decline. 4. Most of the companies in Cambridge Science Park are in the quaternary sector. 5. Science parks grew partly because of the demand for high-tech products has increased. 6. The loss of manufacturing in a country is called deindustrialization. 7. The GDP per capita in Nigeria today is about $2,200. 8. The long-term response that reduces the impact on buildings of future hazards is called Build Back Better. 9. The plate boundary with no volcanoes is called a conservative boundary. 10. Most tropical storms form between 5 to 15 degrees north and south of the equator. Give yourselves a mark out of 10. If you got 8 or above, well done. Please write any questions you got wrong and their answers and test yourselves repeatedly on them so that you understand it perfectly. To introduce this lesson, I'm going to ask you a big question, which is, what is more important, the internet or transport? That is the key question. I'm going to show you 2 pictures and 3 questions are going to come up next to them. Please answer the questions using the best of your understanding. Go for it. So number 1, which is more important for the UK's economy, the internet or high-speed train networks? Give reasons. This is a question without a very clear answer, so you could have said many possible reasons. But you may have said that the internet is more important because it underpins almost every economic activity in the UK. This is especially true because the UK's economy is based on the tertiary sector, which is dependent on computers. Communication between businesses is critical for their success and for their profits. For example, online shopping is very important. Businesses only invest in a place when there is good internet. So the internet is extremely important. You may have also said, however, that fast trains are very important for the economy because they allow commuting to further away locations, which increases the access of high-skilled jobs to people. Overall, you may have said, though, that the internet is more important because people tend to work near to where they live. Also, people are increasingly able to work from home in the UK because the jobs are not manual labour jobs and they require the internet. For instance, in the coronavirus pandemic, it has been seen that many people are still able to work from home as a result of the internet. 2. Why is the internet particularly important in the UK's economy? Well, we've addressed that already partly. It's because we have a post-industrial economy based on computer technology, on research, on finance, and on the tertiary sector. How can fast train networks reduce air pollution and urban sprawl in the UK? Well, I was hoping that you would say that fast trains are a form of public transport, and since they rely on electricity, they do 2 things. Number 1, they don't cause air pollution, and number 2, they reduce the demand for cars, which leads to more people taking trains and fewer people producing carbon dioxide emissions. That is the introduction to this lesson. How important are railway networks? And I'm going to help you understand this better. 2 really big projects have been developed in the UK and are ongoing right now, and they're going to have significant effects on the UK's economy. I want you to understand them, and they're all to do with trains. So the big question, are more railways a good idea for the UK? I'm going to tell you about 2 railway projects. The first one is a progression, a second stage of what we already have in the UK, which is Eurostar and High Speed 1. If you've ever been on Eurostar or know what it is, you'll know that it travels from London across Europe at very high speeds and goes under the Channel Tunnel. That's called High Speed 1. The project being planned by the UK now is High Speed 2, even faster trains that will go across the UK. Looks like this. The first phase of High Speed 2 is going to go from London to Birmingham, and then the second phase will go across to all the other northern cities. So why would the government invest in this? It's an extremely expensive project that requires thousands of workers with lots of different skills, and it will require a long time to be completed. What is expected to happen as a result of High Speed 2? Well, the main benefit that is perceived by planners, that is predicted by planners, is economic growth. Consider the importance of transport that we've already discussed in previous lessons and think about how it would lead to it. Firstly, it will lead to a significant number of construction jobs, High Speed 2. About 22,000 people will be working in some way on the construction of the railway line from London to Birmingham and then beyond. 22,000 jobs, not just construction workers, but engineers and researchers and people who study the environmental impact of the railway and people who help to build the different parts of the trains. All kinds of jobs would be involved in the construction of this project. Other people would be involved in the building of the train stations or the modernization of the train stations in the different cities. This requires lots of people. That would give a lot of people reliable, high-income jobs. And as a result of those jobs, you get economic growth, because more people having higher incomes means more taxes, means more economic growth. However, High Speed 2 is also thought to lead to more productivity gains. It is going to cut down the time between travelling between cities by a significant amount. For example, the journey time between London and Birmingham is expected to be reduced by 45 minutes. That would mean that you get an extra 45 minutes times 2 if you travel between these two cities every day to work. Not only that, you can work on the train. In a car, you can't do your work. This means that you get an hour and a half of work time extra that you can complete whatever project you need to. As a result, people's productivity is expected to increase. Each day, they are expected to create more value for the company and therefore more income for themselves. Productivity also leads to more investment. When companies get richer, they have more money to invest in things. When people get richer, they spend more money and therefore other companies invest in those areas. You saw with the case of Nigeria, when incomes increase, investment increases. So for instance, by connecting these cities to London and to Birmingham, you'll have more high-income people working in these cities, which means that more businesses will want to invest there because they know that the number of people with high incomes there has increased. So they'll buy their products. Demand will increase. Investment rises, therefore. Additionally, high-skilled people. That is the key element of the UK's economy. We are a knowledge economy in the UK, which means that many of the jobs in the UK are dependent on high-skilled employment. One big problem for many jobs is that the skilled people can't get to those jobs every day, and many of them don't want to live in certain places like London. However, if you have High Speed 2, which dramatically reduces the time it takes to get around the UK, then you increase the access of companies to high-skilled people. Cambridge Science Park may get more skilled people from Birmingham. Leeds may get more skilled people from London or Manchester. All of these benefits would happen because of a faster train network. That's the prediction. That's the reason why so much money is being spent on this project. However, this project, High Speed 2, is very controversial, which means not everyone thinks it's a good idea. For two important reasons. The first is environmental. Some of the most biodiverse and ecologically important areas in the UK are in this central area between London and Birmingham. High Speed 2 is expected to cut through them. A recent report by the government showed that many forests in this area will have to have a hole cut through them to provide for High Speed 2. To avoid some of this, High Speed 2 will dig tunnels underneath the ground so that it's avoided. But one big cause of concern is deforestation. Cheshire, which is a county in England here, is especially concerned about damage to the forests that are located there. So the first major concern about High Speed 2 is that. Second, however, High Speed 2 will be the most expensive infrastructure project the UK has ever invested in. Currently, it is expected to cost about £90 billion to complete it, which makes it more expensive than any other infrastructure project built. To give you a comparison, the Channel Tunnel cost £9 billion to complete. That was completed in 1994. This project, High Speed 2, is expected to be at least 7 times more expensive. So the big question is this: if it is so expensive, is it worth it? And to understand that, you have to ask the question, is there anything else that we could do with the same amount of money that might lead to better results, that might lead to more economic growth, more access to skilled people, more productivity? Well, some people argue that these 3 things would lead to better results and cost less. First of all, instead of having super fast electric trains going from London to the north of the UK, have slightly less fast but still quick trains between the cities of the north. They argue that London doesn't need any more connections. London doesn't need any more infrastructure investment like this. They also argue that having High Speed 2 will mean that most people end up going to work in the jobs in London. Here's the problem. If the people are going to get jobs in London, that means there are fewer skilled people working in these cities in the north, which means the incomes there will go down, the taxes will go down, and so the investment there will go down. London's, however, will increase. This may lead to increased inequality between the north and the south of the UK. So, the people argue, the trains should go between these cities so that infrastructure and transport between the cities improves, leading to increased investment in these areas. That's one really important project. Second, invest in the internet, in other infrastructure projects like the internet. As we discussed at the beginning of this lesson, the internet is perhaps the most important part of the UK's economy. The cities in the north have significantly slower internet than in the south. We should spend the money on the internet instead of a high-speed rail network. Perhaps the internet, because people work at home, will lead to greater gains for less cost, better value for money. And finally, many people want to go and live in Birmingham and in London because the infrastructure within those cities is the best. London has the underground, it has some of the best infrastructure in terms of cycling networks. So, some people argue, we should improve the infrastructure, for example, electric tram lines in northern cities, which will make them more attractive to high-skilled people, so that bigger companies offering high-skilled jobs, like in the quaternary sector, will invest more in the north. This is the debate right now with High Speed 2. Although it is predicted to have significant economic benefits, it is also considered to be not necessarily the best value for money and possibly environmentally damaging. So the first project, High Speed 2, it is clearly important, but it's controversial. The second one is called Crossrail. Now, Crossrail is very different. If any of you watching have been on the London Underground, you'll know it is so important for London's transport. Millions of people take the London Underground every single day to go to work. Tourists travel around London, students and school children travel around London. Almost everyone travels around London using the tube, the Underground. Crossrail is expected to dramatically increase the capacity of people who travel around London, which is Britain's most important city. More than a quarter of the UK's GDP, so its entire economy, is based in London. Crossrail is expected to improve that because many people live in these towns outside of London, for example Reading, and would benefit from fast access to the centre. So here's how it's predicted to benefit the UK. Here's what part of it looks like as an underground network underneath the city. So this part would be underground and this part would be overground mostly. The main goal is economic growth. So how would Crossrail achieve that? Well, the first thing is construction jobs, in the same way as a High Speed 2. It is estimated that some 55,000 jobs will be created through construction, not just of the trains and of the tunnel, but the companies that supply parts to the trains will also be given jobs. 95% of the different tasks that have been used and needed to construct Crossrail have been given to British companies, which means there has been very little economic leakage out of the UK. Most of the money has remained within the UK and gone to local people. Additionally, lots of small companies have started up and increased their incomes because of this project. Not only that, but Crossrail, because it will reduce journey times, will increase productivity. Many companies in London depend upon people being there early and leaving late. Law firms, hospitals, high-tech companies, and if they can have workers with shorter journey times, that will really help them. It is expected that Crossrail will increase the capacity of London's public transport network by 10%. That means 10% more people can travel easily every day. That's an enormous number, considering that London is a city of 9 million people. 10%, 900,000 people. That's a lot. As a result, it is predicted that £1.3 billion will be added to the UK's economy every year through increased jobs and increased productivity because of Crossrail. This, as you know, leads to more investment. More money means more businesses attracted. If businesses have more money, they have more money to invest, so the businesses become more profitable. Additionally, and this is always the key element with the UK's economy, skilled people will have increased access to jobs in London. Currently, there are many skilled people who want jobs in London but cannot afford to live there. For example, the story I told you in the first lesson on transport. There are people who work in between Oxford and London, who have jobs in London but take a long time to travel there. Crossrail will reduce that journey time, which means that companies in the centre of London will have increased access to highly skilled people who do not want to live in the centre of London. This is really important. Now, since these skilled people might live in towns outside of London, for example Ashford in Kent or Reading here, this would lead to increased investment for those towns. Because you have highly paid skilled people living in a place, more companies would come and invest there. More cinemas, more supermarkets, more business companies that provide high-skilled jobs. As a result, the economies of those towns themselves would grow. Reading's economy has increased by 40% in the last 30 years. Oxford's has grown. Ashford has whole new neighbourhoods of modern housing built to accommodate the more highly skilled people that live there. The high-speed 1 train, the fast train that transports people from Ashford into London, has meant that more high-skilled people live in Ashford. Same with Reading. So Crossrail will also improve investment in the towns outside London. This is really important as well. Finally, since Crossrail is so cheap to travel on, since it is so efficient, and since it's so fast, and since it's electric, it will dramatically reduce air pollution in the UK. Because fewer people will want to take cars. This is not only because Crossrail is so good and so fast, but also because the congestion charge and the ULEZ in London discourage people from driving into the centre. As a result, air pollution decreases and so people's health improves. So Crossrail is expected to be a very beneficial project for the UK's economy. Although it has been delayed repeatedly by problems, and I cannot say for certain how much benefit it will have because it hasn't been finished yet, I can tell you based on the research that I've done and that has been done by the government, it will be overwhelmingly a positive project for the UK's economy. Okay, time to assess how much you've learned. Please write 1 to 8, read the questions, answer them, then mark your answers. Go for it. Number 1. What is the name of the proposed fast train network across the UK? It's High Speed 2 or HS2. 2. Shorter journey times and construction jobs will lead to economic growth. 3. Fast train networks across the UK may have negative environmental effects, for example deforestation. 4. Some people argue that investment in other infrastructure, for example fast internet and better trains in the north of the UK, is better value for money. 5. Crossrail will lead to easier and faster access into the main economic area of the UK, which is London. 6. Shorter journey times to work means higher productivity. 7. Travelling to work on the electric public transport also means reduced air pollution from cars. And 8. Better infrastructure around cities will attract more high-skilled employees or people from around the country and around the world. Give yourselves a mark out of 8. Okay, time to really embed your learning. I'm going to give you some questions where you'll need to think deeply about this. Write your answers in full sentences using the keywords and then mark your answers after. Go for it. Okay, number 1. The features of high-speed 2. I wanted you to give me 2. So any 2 of these. Number 2. Explain 2 possible ways that HS2 may contribute to the UK's economy. So 2 fully explained points. Either this, jobs indirectly or directly. Or after it's constructed, high-skilled workers, more investment, new businesses. 3. How investment in public transport like Crossrail may lead to reduced environmental problems. You could have said that public transport decreases demand for cars. Also, reduced demand for cars leads to reduced air pollution. 4. Explain why investment in rail infrastructure may improve the supply of skilled employees in cities. Investment means people can commute from greater distances. It also means workers can live in cheaper areas. It means that there's better transport, which will attract foreign workers. Okay. From this lesson, write 2 questions from memory. Answer them, and then test yourselves in a week repeatedly. Please watch these 2 videos in the links attached below so that you understand this perfectly. In the final lesson on transport, I'm going to ask you this big question. What is the most important upgrade to infrastructure the UK can do for international trade? Think about that. How can we improve our international trade capacity most effectively? Join me for that lesson. Thank you.